Today, we're diving into fasting. Now, before you tune out thinking this is just some trendy diet hack, hear me out. I know you've probably seen fasting everywhere lately, and maybe you've wondered if it could help you finally lose the weight and feel energized again. But here's what most people don't tell you about fasting: there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. There are people who should never fast, and there's so much more to this than just skipping meals. So if you've been curious about fasting but didn't know where to start, or if you've tried it before and it didn't work, I want you to grab a notebook and a pen, take some notes today, because we're going to cover what fasting actually is, how it impacts your body, and more importantly, whether it's right for you. Welcome to Strength for Generations, the go-to podcast for Christian families who want to build strength, restore energy, and deepen connection with God at the center. I'm Krista Baker, Christian health coach, wife, mom, and co-founder of Baker Family Fitness. I'm here to help you honor God with your health and bring peace back to the process, to simplify what it means to build strength in your body, renew your mind, and care for your spirit, all without losing precious time with your family. So grab your coffee and your ribeye, and let's do this His way. Now, before we jump in today, guys, I need your help with something. I am so passionate about helping more Christian families build health that honors God and strengthens their families. If this podcast has helped you in any way, would you take 30 seconds right now to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it? Or maybe text it to your spouse, post it in a mom's group, or share it on your social media. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe and leave us a review. Those reviews help other families find the show, and honestly, they encourage my heart when I'm preparing these episodes for you. Your support helps us reach more families who are struggling with their health and need hope. Now, let me tell you about a conversation I had last month. A mom in my community came to me frustrated and confused. She's like, Krista, I keep seeing all these posts about fasting for weight loss. My friend lost 20 pounds doing intermittent fasting. Should I try it? And she paused and said, but I'm a little scared. I've struggled with my relationship with food before, and I don't want to mess up my metabolism or set a bad example for my kids. And that really stood out to me because she's created this awareness piece, but yet she's still wondering, is fasting the answer for her? And I could really feel this internal battle that she was having, the desire to finally find something that would work, but also the fear of, is this going to make things worse? Because she had also heard some negative stories about other people's intermittent fasting journeys. So her concerns were completely valid because fasting, it's not a magic bullet, and it's actually not right for everyone. And if you don't understand what's actually happening in your body when you fast, you can end up doing more harm than good. And that's exactly why I wanted to do this episode today, to give you the foundation you need to make an informed decision about whether fasting belongs in your health journey. And also to prepare you guys for Friday's episode where Emily Robbins joins me to discuss the spiritual side of fasting. So first, let's establish what fasting actually is and what the research tells us. Fasting is simply abstaining from food for a specific period of time. It's not a diet. It's not a quick fix. It's not about punishing your body. Fasting is an eating pattern that cycles between periods of eating and not eating. But here's what's really important to understand. Fasting has been around for thousands of years. It's woven into scripture as both a physical and spiritual discipline. What's new is the extensive research showing us exactly what happens in our bodies when we fast. In 2019, a study was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and it found that intermittent fasting can improve insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation, and support cardiovascular health. Research from Johns Hopkins has shown that intermittent fasting can help with weight loss, but may even improve brain function. But these benefits only occur when fasting is done appropriately and by people who are good candidates for it. Now, let me break down the most common types of fasting you'll see today. So the most common you'll probably see is the 16-8 method. That means that you're going to fast for 16 hours and you're going to eat within an 8-hour window. So for example, if you start eating your first meal at noon, you finish your last meal by 8, and you fast until noon the next day, you've now fasted for 16 hours. And then you might have heard of the 14-10 method. It's a little bit gentler, where you fast for 14 hours and then you eat within your 10-hour window. So you have breakfast by 8 a.m. and you're done eating supper by 6 p.m. There's the 5-2 method, which involves eating normally 5 days a week and significantly reducing your calories, usually to 500 to 600 calories on 2 non-consecutive days. Then there's the 24-hour fast, sometimes called the Eat Stop Eat method. This involves fasting for a full 24 hours once or twice a week. I had a friend also, he used to do like a 24. So he fasted for 20 hours and ate during a 4-hour period. And some people practice extended fasting for 48 to 72 hours. But the most sustainable and researched approaches are the 14-10 and the 16-8. These allow you to maintain normal social eating patterns while still getting metabolic benefits. So let's dive deep into what fasting does for your body. When you fast for 12 to 16 hours, several important metabolic changes happen. So your insulin levels drop significantly. And this is huge for weight loss because lower insulin levels makes it easier for your body to access stored fat for energy. Studies show that insulin levels can drop by 20 to 31% during fasting periods. There's some research that indicates that HGH levels can increase as much as 5-fold during a fast. This helps preserve muscle mass and can boost fat burning. Your body starts a process called autophagy. And that's kind of like your body's kind of cleanup crew. It starts breaking down and recycling old damaged cells. The process was so significant that the scientist who discovered it won a Nobel Prize in 2016. So this is kind of one of those reasons why people report feeling more alert and focused during fasting periods. Okay, so now we have to have more of the serious conversation about who should not fast. Now, this is where I need you to pay very close attention. If you have had a history of eating disorders, including anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating disorders, fasting is really not appropriate for you. The National Eating Disorders Association specifically warns against intermittent fasting for people with eating disorder history. The restriction and rules around eating can trigger unhealthy patterns and potentially lead to a relapse. So if you've ever had an unhealthy relationship with food, where you used restriction as control or punishment, fasting could reignite those behaviors. Also, if you have hypoglycemia or a history of low blood sugar episodes, fasting can be dangerous for you as well. Hypoglycemia occurs when your blood sugar drops too low, and fasting can trigger severe episodes that require immediate medical attention. If you have vasovagal syncope or a history of fainting, especially related to hunger or low blood sugar, fasting is not appropriate for you either. The stress of fasting can trigger fainting episodes, which could be dangerous depending on when and where they occur. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you shouldn't be fasting. Your body needs consistent nutrition during these seasons, and fasting could impact milk supply or fetal development. If you have diabetes, especially type 1 or other blood sugar disorders, you need medical supervision before attempting any form of fasting. Because fasting can really cause dangerous drops in blood sugar levels, especially if you're on any medications, particularly for blood pressure or diabetes. It could interfere with how your body processes them. Or if you're under chronic stress right now or not sleeping well, adding the stress of fasting could actually backfire. Your cortisol levels are already elevated when you're stressed, and fasting can increase cortisol further. So if you're already restricting calories significantly or under eating, it could actually push you into this metabolic slowdown. So if you're a perfectionist or you tend toward the all or nothing thinking, the fasting rules might become another source of stress and self-judgment. Also, we have to understand too, like if you're a parent, if your kids are watching and learning from your eating habits, be very intentional about how you talk about and approach fasting, because we don't want our children to think that skipping meals or restricting food is the answer to feeling good about yourself. Trust me, they're watching, guys, and they're listening to everything you say. So how you speak about this in your home is going to be really important. That's why I'm trying to unpack all this for you today. So who is fasting good for? Well, fasting can be beneficial for people who are metabolically healthy, people who have stable, healthy relationship with food, and don't use eating or not eating as an emotional coping mechanism. People who aren't prone to that all or nothing thinking about health and nutrition. People who are looking to improve insulin sensitivity and support sustainable weight loss alongside other healthy habits. People who want to simplify their eating schedule and reduce decision fatigue around meals. People who are interested in the spiritual discipline of fasting and want to combine physical and spiritual benefits. And I'm not really going to dive into the spiritual stuff today because that's what's happening on Friday, but I do want to touch on it just slightly for you guys this morning. People who have adequate body fat stores and aren't already underweight or under eating. But even if you check all these boxes, fasting should be approached gradually and thoughtfully. So here's how to approach it in a healthy, sustainable way. Let's start small. If you're interested in intermittent fasting, and let's say right now your eating window is, if you wake up and you have breakfast at 8 a.m. and you have supper at 8 p.m., you've got this 12-hour window where you have consumed food and then 12 hours where you're not having anything to eat. So jumping into a 16-hour fast might feel like it's too much. So instead, why don't we just try by pushing breakfast back by 30 minutes? So let's say you have your breakfast at 8:30 and then you finish your meals by 7:30. So now we've kind of closed a gap on 1 hour. And you're gradually going to extend that time between those meals. So people naturally fast for those 8 to 10 hours overnight anyways. So let's say you work yourself up to, 13 and then 14. And then if you can get to 16 and it feels good for you, I want you to make sure that you pay attention to your body's signals. You don't want to feel weak and dizzy and unable to concentrate or unable to function normally, because most people say that they feel more alert when they do it. Like you feel more focused. I'll hear a lot of people that do these really long, people that do those 3-hour podcasts tend to either fast or eat more keto the day of a long podcast because they say it makes them feel more alert. But it's not something that we want to jump into without really kind of taking it slowly, right? So some hunger is going to be normal. It's going, your body is, if your body's been used to eating meals at specific times all the time, your body's going to naturally feel hungry at that time. It's just remembering that, oh, you usually eat now, so I'm going to give you that signal. Okay. So that's normal. Something to consider is not to fast during very high stress periods. Like if you're dealing with a family crisis or work deadlines or major life changes, maybe illness, this isn't really the time to add fasting to the mix. Your body is going to need consistent fuel during stressful times. So fasting is a tool. It's not a rule. Some days you might fast and some days you might not. And it doesn't have to be every single day. One thing that really matters the most is the quality of your food more than the timing. Don't use fasting as an excuse to eat poorly during your eating windows. We really want to make sure we focus on nutrient-dense whole foods that will nourish your body. And most importantly, if you're married, you might want to talk to your spouse about this because it might affect your mood and your energy or your availability to be present because your body's going to go through a little bit of a change. So just have an honest conversation about what you're doing. And also, I think it's really important that you understand why you're doing it. And that way, maybe your significant other will want to do that with you. Maybe not. And that's also okay because everyone's different, right? So one of the most important things that we got to make sure is the right way to fast, like to break your fast. A lot of people immediately reach for sugary foods or carbohydrates or sugary drinks. I remember when I was coaching a woman through Ramadan and they fast for a whole month and it was during the summer. So her fasting hours were really, really long. And then I remember her telling me what everyone was having for their meal at like 9 p.m. and they hadn't eaten all day. And it was just desserts and sugary carbs and stuff like that. So when I was working with her, I was like, hey, we should really prioritize breaking your fast with protein and healthy fats first. That way it's going to help to stabilize your blood sugar and keep you satisfied longer. So I'm going to give you a couple specific action steps that you can take this week. So action step number 1, I want you to complete an honest self-assessment. So ask yourself these questions and write down your answers. Do I have a healthy relationship with food, or have I used eating or not eating to cope with emotions or stress? Have I ever been diagnosed with an eating disorder or struggled with disordered eating patterns? Am I in a good place mentally and physically to try something new right now? Do I have any medical conditions or take medications that might be affected by fasting? This includes hypoglycemia, vasovagal syncope, diabetes, or blood pressure meds. Am I currently under eating or restricting calories in other ways? If you answered yes to having a healthy relationship with food and being in a good place, and no to other concerns, you might be ready to explore this carefully. If you answered yes to any of the concerning questions, I want you to focus on building a strong foundation with consistent, nourishing meals first. So we need to make sure that we're just focusing on eating well-balanced meals before we dive into anything like this, my friends. So once you've established your foundation for several months and feel confident in your relationship with food, then let's reconsider or revisit whether fasting might be appropriate for you. So action step 2, we're going to start with natural fasting extension. So if you're completed your self-assessment and you've determined that you're ready to explore fasting, we're going to begin with the most gentle approach possible. So this week, I want you to simply notice when you naturally stop eating at night and when you naturally want to eat in the morning. So like we said earlier, if I'm at 8 a.m. just eater and I finish having my supper by 8 p.m., I might start to push back my breakfast to 8:30 and then close my window in the nighttime to 7:30. And then do that for a couple of days. And then I'm going to push back to 9 and then maybe pull back to 7. And I know it's going to vary because people have shift work, or maybe you're like lugging all the kids around and you don't get home till a certain time. So if you know that that's what your pattern is, then we have to start kind of steering the ship around what real life looks like. So if you're at the point where it's like 14 hours and you feel really good, then you can start doing a little bit more and get to that 16-hour window. I personally think that this is a really good option for people that really struggle with nighttime eating. I would say that it would be better to close the gap earlier at night because we have a lot of late night boredom eating. So if that's the case, then I think that you would qualify really good for a practice like this because it's just closing the window of when we're consuming food. But we still need to eat the right amount of food during our window of opportunity. So we still need to make sure that you're still getting your macros in during your actual eating hours. Then I want you to think about how you're going to track your response, not just your weight. So if you decide to do the fasting, I want you to keep a simple journal of how you feel. Note your energy levels throughout the day. I want you to track your mood and your mental clarity. Pay attention to your sleep quality. Notice your hunger. If you're feeling satiated, watch for any signs of obsessive thinking about food or eating times. This is more important than what the scale says. And I see so many people stress out about this eating window. Like, oh my gosh, like I ruined it because I had like a couple calories here, and it just gets really out of hand. So I want you to just really be mindful of those signals in your body, okay? And then action step number 4, I want you to prepare for the spiritual component. Emily's going to talk to us about the spiritual fasting, and I want you to think about this ahead of time. What questions do you have about how fasting can deepen your relationship with God? How might this discipline become more than just a weight loss tool? What does Scripture say about fasting, and how can that inform your approach? I want you to start praying about whether God is calling you to explore fasting as a spiritual discipline alongside any physical benefits. So I also want to just talk quickly to the parents right now. If you're mom or dad and you're considering fasting, I want you to think about your family schedule. It's not a good idea to fast on days when you need to be fully present and energetic for your kids in the beginning, because you don't want to be like, oh, I'm so hungry, I can't eat. Like, we don't want to say those things in front of our kids, or I'm not allowed eating at this time. Okay, that's where it's going to start messing with them a bit. So if you're cooking these family meals, make sure that your fasting schedule doesn't interfere with that. And maybe we can consider fasting during times when your spouse can pick up the extra responsibilities if needed. It's important that we model those healthy attitudes about food and body image for your children. And we don't want them to hear that this is like a punishment or you talking about your body in negative ways. So here are some red flags that mean you should stop fasting immediately. Okay, if you find yourself obsessing about food or eating times, if you start viewing fasting as punishment for eating too much, if you feel guilty or anxious when you can't stick to your fasting schedule, if your energy crashes so low that you can't function normally, if you experience dizziness, weakness, or other concerning symptoms, if your sleep becomes disrupted or your mood becomes unstable, if you start avoiding social situations that involve food, that's a really big one. If your spouse or close friends express concerns about your behavior around food, any of these signs means that fasting is not serving you well and you should stop immediately. And I'm going to address a couple of the common myths about fasting. So, myth number 1, you have to fast every single day for it to work. This is absolutely false. Many people practice intermittent fasting just a few days a week and still see benefits. Consistency matters more than perfection. Myth number 2, longer fasts are always better. Not true. For most people, 14 to 16-hour fast provides significant benefits without the risk of the stuff that comes with the extended fasting. Myth number 3, you can eat whatever you want during your eating window. No, you cannot. Okay, please take it from me. It actually defeats the purpose. The quality of your food still matters tremendously for your health and weight loss goals. Making sure that you have the right amount of food within your eating block, your eating period, is really important, guys. Myth number 4, fasting will automatically fix all your health problems. Fasting can be a helpful tool, but it's not a cure-all. You still need to focus on sleep and stress management, your movement, and overall nutrition. So just a reminder, guys, fasting is not a requirement for good health or weight loss. Many people achieve their health goals without ever fasting. Some people really don't do well with fasting. And I've gotten people to really, really healthy places without having to. The spiritual fasting is a whole other conversation, and I can't wait for you guys to hear about that. But remember, like if you've had some history of the eating disorders and stuff, please be mindful. There's no shame in the decision for you to not do this. There's no pressure for you to actually go ahead and fast. Okay? If you do decide to do it, start slowly. Remember, we serve a God who cares about our whole person. Physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health are all important to him. So whatever you decide about fasting, make sure it's serving your overall well-being and bringing you closer to him, not further away. Don't forget to tune in on Friday when Emily comes to talk to us about the spiritual side of fasting. That conversation is going to transform how you think about this ancient discipline and how it can deepen your walk with God. Until next time, my friends, stay strong and keep building strength for generations. Thanks for tuning in to Strength for Generations. If this podcast encouraged you, it would be a blessing if you took a quick minute to leave a 5-star review. It helps more families hear this message and find hope for their health and faith journey. It lights me up to know this podcast is helping you. And if you feel led to share this episode, text it to a friend, post it to your stories, or send it to someone on your heart. God might use it to encourage someone who really needs it today. And don't forget to eat steaks, lift weights, love Jesus, and keep doing it His way.